guys, welcome back to Room 237, back with another review. And this is yet another film on Hulu that is not a blind watch. It's one that I caught a few months back. Was going to do a review, but I think it was around the time of the move, and I got lost in time, and I never got around to it. So I went back, rewatched it, now I'm doing a review, which I really don't think I needed to rewatch it because there's not a whole lot to this film beyond the initial concept. And it's a film from 2021, supposed to be released in 2020. COVID screwed that up, just like a number of things. And it was one that got picked up or caused a bit of interest on the internet just because of the premise when the script was announced, due to its obvious connections to a very popular franchise. And it's another one of the slew of Nicolas Cage films that he's been doing the last few years. But this is what he actually served as a producer on. And it is Willy's Wonderland. Now, yes, of course, Nicolas Cage, probably for financial reasons or whatever else, that's what I read. He's been doing dozens of movies a year to help himself out. But I guess he heard about the script or the premise on a website, was really intrigued by it, and he offered help, offered his hand at both acting and producing, which I think that was as far back as 2016. And of course, this picked up a lot of intrigue due to its very obvious similarities with Five Nights at Freddy's. Of course, the writers have said that they weren't inspired by Five Nights at Freddy's. This is not the first horror movie to kind of go that route with these kids' pizza entertainment places having killer animatronics. There was the Banana Splits movie that came out prior to this, which I still haven't seen. And this movie seems to be very divisive. There's people that either love this movie to death, or there's people that think it's horrible. Yeah, I have heard some in between, and that's kind of where I am. This serves more as an action comedy with this by-the-numbers slasher film with a cool premise around it. That's basically it. It was directed by Kevin Lewis, written by Geo Parsons, and yes, Cage served as producer and the lead actor. Also stars Emily Tosta, Beth Grant, who playing another hard-ass bitch character, like in Child's Play 2. She was Miss Kettlewell. And a slew of other people. Rick Wrights, Chris Warner, Kai Cadillac, Kaylee Cowan, who was in a movie called Sunrise in Heaven. Can't even click on her name. David Sheftel, which he was been on Family Guy and American Dad. He looked familiar, but nothing else I've seen him in. He kind of looks like the dad for Pet Sematary 2, but like younger. David Newbert did the cinematography. Ryan Liebert did the editing. Normally, I don't bring up editing, but with this, I do have to make a point of it. And I believe it's pronounced Emois, provided the music. It's short. It's only 88 minutes, and it does go at a fast pace. There's these 8 animatronic things that have to be killed or they will kill, so it does go at a fast pace. But the okay, so I guess this was announced in 2019, but the idea involving Cage has been around as early as 2016. I think that's when the original script and short film Wally's Wonderland was released, and they tried to make it a movie several times, I guess. And I think they were inspired by old westerns because Nicolas Cage is sort of like the drifter a man with no name kind of character. He's even credited as the janitor. He's never given a name. And this is something that will break the movie for a lot of people because there's a lot of Cage fans that really love him for what he does. For me, never really being much of a Cage fan, this movie really seemed interesting to me. And I did not know this aspect before watching it. He doesn't have one word of dialogue throughout this entire movie. He's just this stone cool guy. You know, he's got a new Camaro, leather jacket, cowboy boots, Ray-Bans, and he mean mugs the whole movie, doesn't speak. So to me, I thought that was interesting. Okay, we're not getting vocal over the top Cage, but there are still parts where he is going over the top. Mainly at the pinball machine, which as the movie goes on, he does more of these little like Tiffany dance moves. He's almost going flash dance at this pinball machine, like doing a lot, some weird dance at the pinball machine. But it's like a typical either Western or like an old 70s proto slasher. Comes into town, spikes blow out his tires. The mechanic says, "Well, I can fix it. You only got plastic and I take cash, but if you want to work it off, I know a guy." So then you get like typical white cowboy hat, southern accent, a businessman says, "Yeah, I'm gonna get this here place up and running, and if you could just clean it up throughout the night, you pay off your debt for the work on the car." And that's all Cage does. And I think that's one of the jokes of this movie, and that's one of the sort of mixed parts I have with it is I get a lot of the intentional humor, but there is a lot that I don't know if it is intentional or if it's just cheesy and bad. The fact that Nicolas Cage is only cleaning this place, and when these animatronics come to life, he fights them, he kills them, he bags them up, goes right back to cleaning. He's not fazed by anything. And then his watch goes off, I think, every hour where he has to drink like some energy pop. It even says fistful of caffeine, which makes me think he's supposed to be like a Clint Eastwood type character. And then there's like a Willy's Wonderland pinball machine that every time his watch goes off and he's on break, he chugs one of those, plays pinball, then goes back to work. And it never says like why he has to drink these or why he does. All the ambiguity of this film surrounds Cage, which is fine. But one thing it does do with these, it does provide a lot of exposition for these animatronics, which is the reason people would probably click on this. Okay, seeing this sort of showbiz pizza place, killer animatronics, Cage is locked in there, but then a slew of teenagers end up inside and it just becomes a bloodbath. Which, that's the other half of this movie. There's this girl played by Emily Tosta named Liz who is just hell-bent on destroying a Willy's Wonderland. And her guardian, Beth Grant, is the sheriff. She keeps stopping her. But one night she gets a group of friends together to, burn it down. Cage is inside. She goes in to warn him. They think they hear her scream, so they try to save her, but they all fall through the roof, so they're all trapped inside because the cowboy hat guy locks them in. And from there, it becomes a slasher movie. And, I mean, all the way down to these characters being absolutely nothing. There's nothing. They are the most stock slasher body count fodder I've seen, like, in I don't know how long. Obviously, Emily Tosta is the standout as, like, the final girl, but the rest of them, other than, like, the friend-zoned crush boy, all the other ones are pretty much interchangeable. You even have a couple going off to have sex at the most inopportune time where they get killed. And I would have been perfectly okay, one, without them. Even though, yeah, you do need some kills. But Emily Tosta provides the exposition for why these animatronics are alive, which I don't remember their names, but Wally, the lead one, is a weasel. There's a knight, a gorilla, a gator, a fairy, either like a fairy or something. Oh, the one thing that's face changes color. I don't know what the hell that was supposed to be. Um, the Spanish one and a reptile. There's 8 altogether, and I don't even think this will tell me what ones they all are. Let's see. There's a dog. Oh wait. Alligator, turtle, gorilla, knight, chameleon. That must have been the face changing one. And then the Wally, the weasel, the fairy. What am I forgetting? Probably the Spanish one, I guess. But in any case, one thing that is cool about them is that every time Cage, inflicts pain on them or kills them, their blood is like oil. Oh, there's an ostrich. That's what it was. Like when he kills the ostrich and rips the head off, there's like the mechanical vertebrae that comes out. It's all black. And every time he fights, he goes and gets a new Willy's Wonderland t-shirt, cleans up, patches himself up with duct tape, and goes right back to cleaning. And that's kind of it's a running gag, so it kind of does get a little repetitive, where he's just cleaning, fights, has his break with the soda, and repeat. But I keep finding it funny every time, like, he's not fazed by this fight or the fact that these robots are coming to life to fight him or kill him. He just goes right back to what he's doing. But yeah, we get the exposition, and this is one of those movies where just because or ambiguity would be just fine. Because the reasoning for why and how these things are alive could have been taken or left. And it's basically child's play. That's exactly what it is. Emily Tosta tells us back in '96 this place opened up. Wally was one of, or Jerry something, was one of the last huge notorious serial killers, and he employed other serial killers, to be in the costume or to work. And after all the disappearances and mishaps, police got involved, but when they showed up, all 8 employees had committed mass suicide and some satanic ritual. So their souls are now in these animatronics. Or just that would have been fine. But they just keep adding to it, like why the town is so small and just totally other reasons for how and why these things kill. Which, we find out the sheriff's in on it. And after a while, like, it was reopened, and when they weren't killing kids, they were saying, vulgar things or doing something. So it was shut down, then they were going out into the town and killing people. So the businessman, the sheriff, and the guy at the garage made a deal that they'll trap passers through, set up the whole thing for, hey, you want to work off your car? Trap them in there at night, and then they'll be able to kill or feed. That was kind of... I'll take the child's play aspect, even though I don't think it's the best. Something like this, I would have rather been just because. I would have been totally okay with that. But I know modern audiences, they need exposition, they need explanations, they don't like ambiguity. Which is probably why one of the biggest complaints I've heard about this film is Cage. Not just because he doesn't talk, but because they don't give him a name, they don't explain why he's the way he is. People don't like to think. But so yeah, the friends end up in there, they get killed off. And the effects, okay. The effects, I'll say, other than the ostrich, the other ones are obviously people in suits. It's very obvious. And there are some very silly moments. Like this giant ass gorilla is able to like hide above a bathroom stall and swing down and attack Cage. Or the fairy is able to like backflip and crawl backwards up the wall. Almost like the film is sped up to make her look fast. I'd rather them have to abide by the rules of their physical body, so I didn't really care for her being able to climb walls and ceilings. Also, the CGI on the fairy's eyes were about as bad as like a PS1 or 2 video game. The CGI was awful. There is some CGI, like sometimes the black, like the oil looks a bit red and black, like they try to color it with CGI, or some of the spatter effects are CGI, which is a major flaw. But also the editing, because it tries to be this, I don't know what it tries to be, I guess action. But like Cage, who's this unstoppable force who, he can fight, he's strong as hell, but the camera gets really up close, shaky, and it gets stroby, and you can't tell what's going on. Takes everything away from it. Then there's some parts that's like, okay, this has to be a joke. And parts of the movie does make me feel like they know how silly this premise is, because it is silly. That they are just going that extra mile to just play with how silly and stupid it is. The sheriff gets a call that the girl, Liz, is at at Willy's, which we find out she's taking care of the girl because one family that was duped and killed, she was young and hid, so the sheriff took her in. So she gets a call, so her and the deputy rush out there. They cuff Cage so that, she wants Willy to fulfill, show that they're holding up their end of the deal. So Cage is cuffed and they leave him, and there's that chameleon thing in the ferry, and like Fonzie, he kicks the jukebox, but also to show how cool he is, because he's like the coolest guy on the planet. And it's this like Chuck E. Cheese version of Head, Shoulders, Knees, and Toes, which that and the Willy's Wonderland birthday song, you will get stuck in your head. It is a wicked earworm. And at first, when Head, Shoulders, Knees, and Toes, he just starts like... And he fights them with his hands behind his back to that song. So there are parts that makes me think, okay, it is silly, it is stupid, but it's fully self-aware and it's just playing with it. The dialogue is very poorly written, which too many typical slasher dialogue, or trying to be cool or noir, like when the sheriff is given exposition, like sometimes things works out the way you want it, and sometimes life will throw you a zinger, and this was the zinger of all zingers. And so many stupid, cheesy lines, which I don't know if it was on purpose, or like if that's part of the humor. It's supposed to sound that dumb. I don't know. And then once they're all dead, people and the animatronics, the The businessman and the mechanic show up. The mechanic's going to give the guy the Camaro. But they look through the window, they see it's all clean. And of course, you hear the opening chords to Freebird. So it's kind of like the Devil's Rejects ending. Cage puts on his leather jacket and gets his Camaro. But we see the fairy is still alive. So like the fairy blows up the car with the businessman and the mechanic in it. And Cage and Liz drive off into the sunset together. Assuming as like a father figure and like a daughter figure, not like romantically. There's really not much to say about this. 20 minutes in now, but there's not much to say because this movie doesn't really go much beyond its premise. Cage, locked in this Showbiz Pizza type place, Five Nights at Freddy's, and fights all these evil animatronic characters. And then a group of slasher teens come in, they all get killed. And it is kind of one or two joke comedy, like the fact he's so unfazed by everything. I mean, even at one point, the sheriff is waiting outside to make sure Cage gets killed. He's able to break free of the zip tie cuffs, and he just takes the trash out, puts it in the dumpster because they left the door open. He just looks back, waves, goes back in, and continues cleaning. So I do like how he's unfazed by everything. That is humorous. I do like that he doesn't say a word because, again, I'm not a Cage fan. So this to me was interesting. And all the quirks about Cage were just because, like, his thing with the soda, or why he loves pinball so much, why he doesn't talk, how he can fight so well and how he's so tough, why he's so cool. I guess he's just supposed to be the, drifter with no name, Clint Eastwood type guy. The dialogue isn't the best. The dialogue would be a flaw, or the writing. Not so much the editing, but specifically the fight scenes were very shaky and not fun to watch. Some CGI, even though the practical effects were cool. It literally, the fairy is just like, they used makeup or whatever to make the actress kind of look plastic, and they just put like a mascot head on her. And then they just add like the noises. I could have done the whole second half with the town working with Willy's to give them these sacrifices. Could have done without that. The whole child's play aspect, kind of take it or leave it. Like I said, I would have rather just been they're alive just because. I know in the Banana Splits movie, it's the idea of like the show must go on, so they just do it. It does have the over-the-top funny scenes that shows like we know how stupid this is, so we're having fun with it. Like the head, shoulders, knees, and toes parts. Or when Cage delivers like the fatal blows to these things, and the music is like trailer epic. It's like slow motion, and you got like the black oil blood going everywhere. It's like slow-mo. But he's beating up like a Chuck E. Cheese animatronic animal character, so it looks really silly. That's all funny, but the slasher aspect with the characters and some of the kills and all the cliches just seems by the numbers. So this is a very middle of the road kind of review. I mean, it's fast paced enough, sure. The premise, in a humorous way, it does carry me through the movie, but I can see why some people might get bored with the premise rather early. And I would say, as much as I liked Mandy, Color Out of Space, Pig, which isn't a horror movie, but Pig is probably my favorite Cage movie of the last few years. I, I, I would probably put Mandy. I know I definitely would put Mandy over this. Color Out of Space. Not really sure, but yeah, it's kind of a time waster. It's kind of cool premise. Cage, kind of kicking ass. At first, it reminded me of, like, Evil Dead. You have like this really cool character, but here is like stereotypically cool, like dad cool, like Clint Eastwood. Trapped in this place, just fighting these possessed things. But yeah, it's fun for what it was, but it's nothing I would really rewatch a lot. Definitely not one of my favorites of the 2020s so far. I do want to see Banana Splits. I have heard more positive things about that, so maybe I'll give that a watch sometime. But yeah, that is Willy's Wonderland. Thank you for watching.